The hypothesis of monitoring. The acquisition of a language is that which indicates the speech of specific language, while the studying of a language has the role of a monitor or a supervisor, according to Krushin 1982. According to these, the language rules that we have learned in a formal way are used for adapting and correction of what is intuitional spoken and written in a language. From this, we can see that the studying of a language is a very limited rule in its production. In one of Krushin's researches, he confirmed that these limitations are connected to certain conditions which must be fulfilled so that the people can consciously recall the already learned rules while they produce phrases in a language. The following are the conditions. The first one is time. It is logical that people need time to recall the rules that they have learned and use them correctly. While this may not be a problem in a written form of communication, it can be a problem if this happens in a spoken form because the speaker will come across as unsure and there will be lack of attention to the message that is supposed to be conveyed and also to the received information or the messages that come from the opposite side. The second one is concentration on the form. It is in the focus of communication and the transmission of a message. Equal distribution of attention to the message that has to be conveyed and the way that it will be conveyed is needed for the previously learned rules to be applied. The last one is knowing the rules. It is obvious that people must fully be familiar with the rules so the speakers can know where and when to use them in the process of production. Taking the complex structure of the languages and their continuous development, it is difficult to say that anyone, including the linguist, knows all of the rules of a language. The exposure to a language. When it comes to the native language, the exposure is greater and it is daily. But when it comes to learning a foreign language, things get a little bit complicated. When knowing that the studying of a language is a peripheral aspect regarding the acquisitioning, our goal as a teacher, as a learner, or even as a student, English as a foreign language is to stimulate acquisition. In the acquisitioning of one's mother tongue, there are few elements that are difficult to be replicated in the foreign language classes. There are three elements. The first one is continuous exposure. The mother tongue is not only used by the closest family members, as well as the everyday environment to which the child is exposed to, but also it is used in the wider environment where the child lives. The second one, adapting to the complexity of a language. The members of the closest family of the child often use simple language forms so that the child can understand them more easily. The last one, the principle of urgency. The acquisition of the mother tongue is simplified because there is the possibility for some things to be named or described almost immediately. In other words, the children in the early phases of the natural order for language acquisition learn through practical examples which are tangible and that are available to be pointed at. Methodological framework of the research. The subject of research are the problems that appear when synonyms, homonyms, and antonyms are taught in English as a foreign language, classes, and the methodical implications which come from them. It is obvious that a certain problems in the acquisition of synonyms, homonyms, and antonyms can appear not only because there are differences between, for example, the Macedonian as a native language and the English as a foreign language, but also there is a difference in how they are learned. Population and samples of the research. While conducting the research, the author had a role of a passive observer, but also the author had a role of a teacher, as it was a requirement for the realization of the practical lessons of the last semester for the author's studies. The methods of the research. The methods of observation and conversation were used. The interpretation of the results, as it was mentioned before, for the requirements, for example, the research paper was conducted which was based on observation and active partaking in the English as a foreign language classes. Besides that, the author used the method of conversation with the teachers of English, and all of the conversation were about the previously mentioned problems.